Yeah, I think none of this stuff is in a box by itself. Like, it's all related. Our childhood stories, our trauma, what we experience going through like the addiction and how it's progressive, and it may start off one day, but by the end you're in it and then it's starting to change. Like, all of that is part of like the process of being sick. And then so I feel like recovery equally looks like, at least for me, it's been a little bit of everything. It's not just, there's always all these debates in the field, like rehab and therapy versus harm reduction, which we can do a whole episode on all these things, right? Versus 12 steps versus like, and specifically AA or NA versus Dharma versus, some of these other things that people have. And it's just like, for me, I needed a little bit of everything. I needed to be able to test some things, find out that it worked at that time or did not work at that time. Whatever it was, whatever suggestions, when I finally became open, doing whatever people suggested, because I didn't know what I was doing on my own. I take psych meds too, but at one point I was fighting that. At one point I fought AA. At one point I fought rehab. Like, all these things. It was like, nope, never going to do it. But in order to get better, because I had all these things, multiple, disorders and ADHD, which was undiagnosed forever, and trauma, like all these things. And it was just like, I'm going to need to combat each and every one of these things with a different tool. And that's like what my recovery's been like. And the biggest thing for me is just being open to whatever help is there.
I think mentioning trauma and like going through addiction, we talk about trauma a lot, about like the things that happen to us. And I'm starting to realize in the last like week or so, a couple weeks, that some of the things that we've done under these circumstances can be traumatic. And I'm just starting to realize that my actions could have actually been traumatic to me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've done things that I normally wouldn't do, right? And like things that like in a sober mind, I'm so deeply ashamed of, but I know that I can't take it back or undo it. And that's one of the things, because that guilt that happens when you do things like that kind of keeps you going sometimes. When those things pop up, it's like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that. Like, shut up, brain, shut up, brain, shut up, brain. I know how to shut you up,
Yeah, exactly. Shame and guilt, like, just using allowed me to numb all that. But it was also like, the more I used, the more shameful things I did. So it was like, right. I wake up in the morning and it's like, oh shit, I did that too. Let's drink, right? It's this never ending cycle. And it's just this hole that keeps getting deeper and deeper, and it's harder and harder to climb out of. Like, and I'm glad I climbed out of it, or started to when I did, because it was getting pretty bad. And, I'm just grateful for that. But it can get pretty dark. Everything that's going on up here in my head. And it's funny because I remember going to one eating disorder treatment, and the psychiatrist there was like, we were talking about anxiety. And I was like, yeah, I'm anxious all the time. And he's like, you don't look very anxious right now. And I'm like, if you were only in this brain of mine, right, and in this body, like tension, fidgeting, just crazy thoughts all the time. But like, I look fine on the outside, and I'm able to function in the real world, pretty easily, even, for most of my use. Right. And then, so it's very hard to be able to identify within somebody else, and for that person to identify within themselves that like, there's a lot going on here that I need to figure out.
I didn't